This video covers how to test if a trend exists in any phase. It's important to test for a trend because if a trend is present, it could adversely affect various kinds of statistics, especially the t-test and also the use of effect size. So it is really a helpful diagnostic in terms of being able to then use that to help select the most appropriate kind of test. Okay, so to begin with, we assume that you have R and RStudio installed. If you don't, go to the instructional videos on our website SSDanalysis.com on installing R and RStudio. If you have R 3.0 installed, make sure you have the patch version installed. If you don't, if you have the official release installed, go ahead and look at the instructional videos on installing R to install the patch version, because there are some small incompatibilities with SSDforR. We also assume that you've installed the package SSDforR. If you haven't, you could also see the instructional video on getting started. So if you have completed all these tasks, click on Packages in RStudio and then click on the check mark next to SSDforR, and that will load the package. You could also type in the console to load the package require, and between parentheses SSDforR, and be mindful of the case, and I'll hit enter, and that will also work. Okay, so now you need to make sure you've downloaded the example file that's on our website SSDanalysis.com, and so I'm going to bring up the home page and then you would scroll down to basic data example, and you would just right click on it and click on save linked file as, and you're going to save it. I'm going to save it on my my desktop, and if you get this message, if you're using a Mac, click on don't append, and I already have it, so I'm just going to click on replace. If you're using a PC, you won't get that message. Okay, now the file's installed, so now we need to open it. So let's type get CSV, and between parentheses SSD, I'm sorry, just type in get CSV, open close parentheses, and it's on my desktop, and I'm going to open it, and now type attach, just as the instructions state, SSD. Okay, and you could type list names to list the various variables in this data set, and it's in alphabetical order, so let's also look at it by typing names and SSD between parentheses, and now it's in order as it appears in the data set itself. So there's a variable cry and pcry. Cry is a behavior variable of a child in school having crying episodes, and P cry is the phase. So let's type P cry and see how many phases we have. So we have 3 different phases. Now with SSDforR, there are 2 ways to obtain the trend. One command is a regress. Type like that. If you want, you can click on the hyperlink to SSDforR, and it will be in alphabetical order, and here it is, and here's the syntax, the usage, and so forth. So the behavior variable cry, which has the number of crying episodes per day, followed by the phase variable P cry, and then the phase you want to get the trend on. So this will do simply the baseline, just one phase, and then hit enter. And here you have it. It's good to remember that this only does one phase, because if you just have a baseline, you'd have to use this function, a regress. Okay, so you can see that there is quite a trend, and if we take a look at the coefficients, the x1 refers to the behavior. So essentially, here we have the slope, which is 1.14, which is basically interpreted as for every unit increase in time from one day to the next, there's an increase of, on average, of 1.14 crying episodes, and the beta is of the slope is statistically significant, has a rather small significance value. And here's the intercept, right, of the value of it is right here. It's 0.33. All right. So now, if you wanted to compare two phases, like for example A to B or A to B1, you could do the AB regress command. Let's go back into help, and if you click on index, you'll get an alphabetical listing again, and it's AB regress we're looking for, and here it is. So here the only difference is now that we have a second phase letter. So let's type AB regress and cry, comma, P cry, comma, A, and if we want to compare it to B, we can do it. Oops. I spelled it incorrectly, had an extra S there. So let's take out that S, and we have AB regress, cry, P cry. Okay, let's go. Alright, now that worked. So we've got the same exact results for X1, which is the A phase, and so there's a reverse trend in the B phase, so that during the intervention phase, B, there's a decrease on average of 1 episode of crying. Now, if you press the up arrow, you'll get back the previous command. Now, if you want to compare the baseline to B1, you could do that also. Just replace B with B1 and hit enter. And now B1 does not have a trend, So you can see the difference. It's a flat line, essentially, with a slope, with a negative slope, but non-significant compared to what we saw for x2, which was 0.02. So now if you were to consider running various statistics like the t-test or effect size, you'd have to consider using statistics that are not impacted by a trend. For example, the G-index, which is also included in the SSDforR package, would be a suitable effect size measure for comparing phases that have a trend, and perhaps the chi-square above and below the regression line would also make sense if you're comparing phases that have trends. Okay, that concludes the video for today, and if you'd like, you can follow us on Twitter at SSDforR, and Facebook. We could be found by searching SSDforR.